Good morning, boys and girls. Thanks for joining me for our reading lesson this morning. Zoe decided to go ahead and join us too. She loves a good story, isn't that right, Zoe? Okay, so yesterday we read a book called This Is Our House. If you want to take a moment, can you remember what this story was about? Oh, yeah. It was about a little boy named George who didn't let anybody into his playhouse. But remember, by the end of the story, they realized that this house was for everyone. George learned an important lesson. He learned that we have more fun when we play nicely together. And I think that's something you probably would say is true too. I know that's true for me. So today we're going to read a new story called A Weekend with Wendell by Kevin Henkes. This story's a really good one. It's one of my favorites actually. And we'll find that our main characters here, Sophie and Wendell, are actually going to experience the same kind of struggles that our friends in This Is Our House did. They're going to learn that we have more fun actually when we are kind and play nicely together. All right, let's get started. A Weekend with Wendell by Kevin Henkes. On Friday afternoon, Wendell's parents dropped him off at Sophie's house. "Wendell's going to spend the weekend with us," said Sophie's mother, "while his parents visit relatives out of town." "Oh boy," said Wendell. Sophie didn't say anything. Are you wondering why Sophie doesn't say anything? She looks a little nervous if you take a look at her face. Her eyebrows are like this, and her head is kind of down like this. I wonder what the illustrator's trying to show us about the way Sophie's feeling. After a snack, Sophie helped Wendell carry his sleeping bag and suitcase upstairs. "Well, what are we going to do now?" asked Wendell. "Do you have any toys?" Sophie pointed to her toy chest. "Is that all you got?" said Wendell. "I've got 1,000,000 times more than that. What else is there to do around here?" "We could play house," said Sophie. "Only if I can make the rules," said Wendell. Oh man. He's kind of reminding me of George in This Is Our House. George wanted to make all the rules, and it didn't really make the other kids want to play with him. I bet that's kind of how Sophie's feeling. So they played house, and Wendell made the rules. He was the father, the mother, and the 5 children. Sophie was the dog. Then they played hospital. Wendell was the doctor, the nurse, and the patient. Sophie was the desk clerk. What do you guys think about these rules Wendell is making? I wonder how it's making Sophie feel. I also wonder if you've noticed that when I'm reading a book, I don't just read the words, I'm thinking about what I'm reading. And I'm telling you what I'm thinking. This is actually called a think aloud. I'm going to ask you guys to do that in a little bit. A think aloud. When they pretended they worked in a bakery, Wendell was, of course, the baker, and Sophie was a sweet roll. "Isn't this fun?" said Wendell. But Sophie didn't say anything. At dinner, Wendell said that he was allergic to anything green, so he didn't have to eat his vegetables. And then when Sophie wasn't looking, he scooped the whipped cream off of her dessert. "When is Wendell leaving?" whispered Sophie. "Soon," said her mother. "Soon," said her father. Can you guess why Sophie is asking when Wendell will leave? Let's keep reading. After Sophie's parents tucked Sophie in her bed, zipped Wendell in his sleeping bag, kissed them both, and turned off the light, Wendell grabbed his flashlight and shone it right into Sophie's eyes. Ooh, all caps. Remember, when we see all caps, the author wants us to say that really loud. "See you tomorrow," he said, smiling. Sophie shut her eyes. "I can't wait for Wendell to go home," she said to herself. On Saturday morning, when Sophie woke up, there was a lumpy blue monster jumping up and down on her bed. Ah, it was Wendell. She felt something pinch her leg at breakfast. It was, guess who? Wendell. There he is, his little tail poking out under the table. "Come on, Wendell, get it together." So she heard scary noises coming from the broom closet. It was Wendell. Wendell used Sophie's crayons and left them on the porch, so they melted. Oh man, he's not being very kind to her things. At lunch, Wendell finger painted with his peanut butter and jelly. "Isn't this fun?" said Wendell. Sophie didn't say anything. "When is Wendell leaving?" whispered Sophie. "Soon," said her mother. "Soon," said her father. It seems like everybody's getting a little bit frustrated. I wonder if you can find where Wendell is in this picture. There's his tail. At bedtime, when Sophie put her head on her pillow, she heard something crunch. It was a note from Wendell. It said, "See you tomorrow." Sophie shut her eyes. "I can't wait for Wendell to go home," she said to herself. There's the picture. "See you tomorrow," with little angry eyebrows and scary teeth. Ha 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 ha. And it looks like this little girl's running away. You know what I noticed in this note? Wendell labeled where Wendell is. Sophie labeled where she is. And he said by W. That's a really good idea. When you draw notes, it's a good idea to label yourselves too. It helps the reader of your note know who you're talking about. It's not a very kind note Wendell made. Before Wendell's parents picked him up on Sunday morning, he tried to make a long-distance call. He wrote his name on the bathroom mirror with toothpaste. Oh, man. And he gave Sophie a new hairdo with shaving cream. "Want to go outside to help me wash this off?" asked Sophie. "We could play firefighter." "Oh, boy," said Wendell. So they played firefighter, and Sophie made the rules. She was the fire chief, and Wendell was the burning building. "Isn't this fun?" said Sophie. Wendell didn't say anything. If you look closely at the pictures, they're playing with the ball. Sophie grabs the hose, and she blasts Wendell with it. Oh no. "Do I get to be the fire chief?" asked Wendell. "Maybe," said Sophie. Ooh, tension is starting to rise. Wendell's maybe starting to get a taste of his own medicine. In this illustration, I see Sophie stop spraying Wendell. He's upset. And then they decide to share the hose together. They go from frowns to both smiling. Soon Wendell and Sophie didn't care who was the fire chief or who was the burning building. This is your turn for a think aloud. Think aloud to yourself. Why does Wendell change? Why does Wendell change? What made him change? Have you said your think aloud thought? Okay, let's keep going. "Time to go," said Sophie's mother. "Time to go," said Sophie's father. "Already?" said Wendell. "Already?" said Sophie. "When is Wendell coming back?" asked Sophie. "Never," said her mother. "Never," said her father. They're maybe having a little too much fun now. That afternoon, when Wendell unpacked his suitcase, he heard something crunch. It was a note from Sophie. It said, "I hope I see you soon." Wow, what a good story. What happens to make Sophie want Wendell to come back? I wonder. I wonder what happens that made Sophie want Wendell to come back. Think about that. And check this out. We can see the note Sophie made on the back. "I hope I see you soon." And they're holding hands. And look, Sophie did the same thing. She labeled where she was with an S and where Wendell was with a W. After you listen to this story, what I want you to do is think about a note you would write to Sophie or Wendell about what they did in the book. If you choose Sophie, maybe you want to talk to Sophie about a different way she could have solved her problem with Wendell. If you want to write a note to Wendell, maybe you could write about a different way he could have behaved that would have made Sophie happier. I wonder. Thanks for reading with me.